Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Southampton, part of the Global Sports Podcast Network. Today I am your host, Zak Ingo Finch. I am joined by Oscar. How you doing, bud?
Yeah. Getting a bit bored of it all now. End of season.
We join you off the back of another loss. We couldn't take the momentum from an okay draw and put it towards a team that we'd already beaten twice this season. No, we had to. We were even joking before this even started, where like it was that much of a farcical display. If it wasn't for maybe the last 20, 30 minutes, I'd have sworn that someone exchanged money somewhere to allow that to be sort of the best goodbye present they could have had. Because they had the ball in the net 4 times in the first half. Yes, 2 were offside, but it was just too easy. It's mad that we are even a Premier League club in comparison to some of these other clubs. Because at the moment,
it just strikes me like it was a testimonial. Like
exactly the words I sent to Greg.
Yeah, and it's what it sounded like. You know, I didn't watch it. Thankfully, I was listening to it on the radio on the way back from work, and it was actually quite depressing. Just the way that it was on TalkSport, so it wasn't even Adam Blackmore. It was the neutral pundits, and it just the way they're talking about Southampton, like, you know, what a perfect opposition to play against in a situation where it's basically you're guaranteed a win, and at 2-0 at half time, it's cruise control for the rest of the game, and you don't even. It's just like that sort of thing is. You know, I'm sort of numb to all the pain from the season now, but that sort of thing is just
it just causes apathy, right? It just causes like a level of sort of annoyance and anger that like no one should be able to be able to say that in any league, let alone the Premier League, and it just be that true. And like I don't, you know, I understand that it was Everton's big day and all Goodison Park. Now it's come out that they're not even knocking it down anyway. Like I get they're not having their home games there, but like it's not like they're completely demolishing the stadium and paving over it. It's now staying. So, and I understand, but like that doesn't mean that our fans who've travelled, you know, for a 12 o'clock kickoff as well, from real early all the way up to Liverpool to just see like a couple of half-fast chances towards the end of the game, because for the first half we didn't have a single shot. It was genuinely like, you're right.
I think it was the first 65 minutes.
Yeah, so funny enough, Oscar, until we brought on strikers.
Yeah. Imagine the shock.
Because Greg texted me, because Greg's unfortunately not here today. He's out gallivanting around at the theatre in London. But he texted me going, I'm assuming we were as bad in the second half as we have been all season. And I said it got better when we got strikers on. We had a debut, which we'll get into, which was good. But honestly, I want 90 minutes back. And as you pointed out, we played it like it was a testimonial. Rusk saying he had positives was bants. It was just really weird for us to set up like we did almost exactly the same against Man City, against a team we've beaten twice. And it's just like we have... Obviously, that means that behind the scenes, we are lacking such a level of confidence. We were hoping to, you know, maybe drag the game out and not concede and, you know, maybe just spoil the party by being frustrating. And within 5 minutes, that was over. So
it's one thing doing that against Man City, I understand it. But doing it against Everton, again, as you say, one of the only teams we've beaten this year.
And twice.
I do almost think that, and I was listening to Going Home with Adam and Joe, they were talking about it, Adam Blackmore, and what they said sort of resonates fairly true. And actually, I somewhat agree. Like, it's almost like Rusk is trying to limit his own reputation to an extent. Like, he's come in and he's been very defensive about everything he's done, and it's about this, that, and the other. Like, everyone knows the situation that he's inherited. If he turned around and got, all right, maybe not getting pumped today, but lost a bit of a ding-dong battle, and it was just because I think people would have accepted it. But again, it's just boring. It's just backwards, sideways passing. It's the same as, you know, Russell Martin, but without an actual purpose. Just trying to solidify it. You know, that's what his aim is, just to solidify, and it was in no way solid at all. Both the goals were embarrassing.
Yeah, that's the thing. And again, it wasn't just those 2 goals. There were, you know, if it wasn't for the fact they were inches offside, it would have been 4. And like, I know that there's a, you know, well, if my dad was a bike blah, 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 blah. I get that, but like, it's the fact that it just seemed so easy to carve us open, and all we were trying to do was stop that, and yet it just didn't happen. And like, I guess we'll talk about the team sheets. So we'll see nothing hugely surprising. Apart from obviously Wood getting back in, but it sounds like, I don't know if something's happened to Bednarek. I don't know. I didn't watch the press yesterday. He did the preview, so I don't know if that was to be expected, but I was quite surprised by that.
Yeah.
Bree, obviously, still, because Carl Walker-Peters is out, supposedly. I was quite surprised by Joe Aribo in for Gachukwu, especially as he didn't get subbed on either. Obviously, Smallbone, we've talked about how he's like sort of the versatile man. And again, from the 60th minute, we did start to play better. But again, that's more because we actually introduced strikers into the mix rather than passing it to players that will get the ball up the end and then not do a lot with it. Although the first half, we didn't even do any of that. I don't understand how those changes weren't made at half time. I'm baffled that.
It's one of those that, you know, it wasn't changes that they made, it was changes that were enforced. And I know it can be easy to say in hindsight, but they're all changes that, you know, average people that aren't involved in football, you know, or aren't paid for their football opinion, like myself included, would think about making. Like I just don't get it. Again, the no striker thing, changing to a back four. I think quite a few people have. I'm not saying that necessarily that's what I'm an advocate for, but quite a few people have said that, and that it changed the game and it made it. Yes, there probably is an element of Everton took their foot off the gas. They know they didn't have to do anything else to beat us. Really, we were done at that point. But if you're playing with a back three and you're still that, and a back three again isn't necessarily a defensive formation. It doesn't have to be, but if you're playing with three centre backs and they are still splitting you apart with passes straight through the middle, you might as well play with a back four. And as today showed in the second half, we weren't any worse doing it, and we actually had a striker, and it just gave us so much more balance. So but you know, but would he have made that change if I can't remember who it was went down injured, but whoever it was, would we have made that change if that hadn't happened? I know Harwood Bellis went down injured, but that was later on. There was another injury that meant he changed that. But yeah,
Aribo for Smallbone, or
it might have been, or when Ross Stewart came on. But it was an enforced change anyway. But
I think either way, I think the point you're making is valid, which is there was nothing like. Once we moved into an attacking formation, we actually got some shots off and looked like we might score. When we tried to set up the exact same way as we set up against Manchester City, we conceded straight away. And again, like, there's probably a lot of, well, we're hit the 12 points mark now, so we don't need to. That's fine, but like, and I can't remember, someone tweeted out like how many of those players do you think actually think about all of the people that have spent all of their money to like go down to Liverpool today to watch them play, and like how much do you know, because like. I'm thinking of when we like battered Sunderland at the at home, right? When we beat them like 8-0. I know this feels like a million years ago at this point, but I don't know if you remember rightly, but like Sunderland like refunded all of those tickets, and it's like you look at the games that we've had this season, and like their idea of a refund is a 5% reduction on the season ticket for us dropping a league.
It's nice. I saw someone that went to the game saying that Carlos Alcaraz showed more respect to the Southampton fans than any of the Southampton players did today, because he came over and clapped him for a couple of minutes.
I think that's probably because he never got to say his goodbye, and for me it seems mad we let go of someone that's now been immediately picked up by another Premier League side who, well, are better than us. But it's you know, I understand that they've had Moyes come in, and it's pretty much like, you know, night and day for how they were at the beginning of the season. But I think that also shows you that the right appointments and the right people, what the changes can be, right? Because they've reassigned like their old reliable who was in charge for a very long time, right up until his departure for Manchester United, and you know he's turned that team around pretty well considering.
Are you banging the "Let's get Ralph back" drum then?
No. To be clear, I don't think that we had a. You know, it depends. If Ronald Koeman came free, bit of a different story, right? Do you think that a Koeman's going to come to our club again? No. Like, that's where I'm at. And to be honest, we'll talk more about that after a word from our partners at Bionique.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bionique. the world's most personalised supplements. Bionique provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bionique. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
And we are back. Just to be clear, it wasn't an enforced change, but it was a change that was took place after an injury to Nathan Wood. So they had a delay, and then obviously, I think from a tactical point of view, they then decided to switch things up. Right. Besides the point, like, I think that you're right in the sense of the changes that took place were dumb, that they happened so late, and they were changes that everybody could have seen, and it's weird we didn't start like that. Or again, make a lot of those changes at half time. Like when you get to half time, you've not had a shot. I don't know what you think that the players on the field are going to do another 20 minutes of. Because again, once we did that, once we brought on Smallboy, then brought strikers on, we actually started to move up the pitch a little bit more. And there was actually something to watch. Because I'm not going to lie, sort of the first 15 minutes of the second half, I nodded off a bit because of these reasons. Because I was like, nothing was happening. And then we finally had the ball a little bit. Our biggest problem is the fact that, some of the punditry I was listening to was talking about how, Southampton had about 2 or 3 chances. They could have put them away. And I'm like, well, yeah, but we're never going to.
Yeah.
And it's just nice to try to
exactly
get that belief back.
If that had been the story of the game, we tried, we weren't good enough to score. Everton popped us on the counter attack. Yeah, that's fair enough. I think you can take that. But it's no, we're gonna sit and defend resolutely, not have a shot. We're going to concede 2 goals anyway. But we're going to
concede 2. Could have been 4. We're going to concede 1 of those in the first 5 minutes. Like,
I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to absolutely lambast Rusk or anything. Like, I know he's been given an impossible task, an impossible situation, but then there's no pressure on that. So why not? Like, what's the worst that can happen to him? If his reputation isn't going to take a hit, everyone knows the situation in reality. So, and look, don't get me wrong, the players, I still think, from the beginning of the season, it's not as if they've absolutely worked their socks off all season and just not been good enough. They've thrown the towel in at times as well. And, today look like they're on the beach. But I'm sorry, the way you've played this season, you don't get to be on the beach. Like, yes, right. The season's done, but you don't get to put your feet up. You've got to, and everyone's saying, like, we're going to sell. I'd only keep Matty Fernandez at the club. Blah, blah. I agree. He's probably the only one I'd want to keep. But at the same time, who's going to want any of them? Like,
yeah,
in reality, they play like that.
This is the mad thing about it, because there are so many people whose their heads have gone. And it's like, where to, mate? Because, like, who in their right mind to scout to go look at... Are you telling me that we've got 11 individual players that are actually really good and we haven't found the right manager? Because we've been through 3 managers this season, and I don't know if it's just that there is an incompatibility between all of them and that maybe they do need to go off to separate clubs. But, like, the fact that most of them think they're all heading off to Premier League clubs baffles me. I was like, where do you think you're going? Other than, like, Sheffield United or a promoted team. Sheffield United aren't even promoted yet. But that's, like, where I think that, like, if you're looking at Taylor Harbour-Bellis, like, where does he think he's going? He wants to stay in the England setup. That's great. You got into the England setup because you started to play pretty well for us, and then you didn't. So, like, it's just infuriating, mate.
It's different, and the one person who probably has a right to turn around and not expect, but not be surprised by a Premier League move or a move to a top club is Matty Fernandez. And he was the one thrown out in front of the cameras today. And actually, I don't know if it's just, eternal hope, but he said we need to be better next season. We need to learn how to win again. The fact he said we fills me with optimism, which is maybe false optimism, but at least he's saying the right things. And that's one of the ones that he probably could turn around and say, do you know what? I've done enough to say, I've done my bit. Whereas there's others that haven't, and they just think, I deserve to be playing.
I agree wholeheartedly, and like some of the opinions of like some of the players that have definitely fulfilled that is like you're looking at Bella Kotchap that was talking about how he thinks that he should have been a starter most of the season and this, that, and the other, and he wants his move in Germany, and you're like, it just kind of seems baffling. It says everything you need to know about the fact that he's no longer in the squad. Grombach, another one that came in, I know we keep talking about it. I ended up finding out, I went and asked George directly from the Daily Echo, like, what's going on with him? And it was like, oh, apparently due to injury, but also I still don't understand what happened there. Ryan Fraser, another name that I occasionally bring up because he just fell off the face of the earth. And, I don't know if that's just because as soon as Russell Martin went, so did he in his head mentally. But, like, you're looking at the players we've got, like, yeah, okay. So they were talking about how good Sulemana was, which was bizarre. So, like, if only they played him more this season. I was like, we've been playing pretty much regularly since January. He did so well against Manchester United. I was like, yeah, and he doesn't score. That's the problem. That's a lot of the problems.
He flashes, but doesn't actually do anything.
And again, it's the whole, like, we put a performance in for 20 minutes at the end of the game to make it something interesting for Evertonians to watch before the end. They were already in party mode at that point. You're exactly right. It was the vibes of a testimonial. And, like, I don't think most of us went into this game expecting us to ruin the party because the script is we won't do that. But it's still upsetting at just how much of a pushover we looked. And the fact that, you've got these players that are already mentally away, already mentally on holiday. Like, we still got to play Arsenal at home. I don't really know. Like, all right, let's try and Greg will tell me off if we don't put something hopeful in here. So let's talk about some good news. Jay Robinson got a couple more minutes under his belt. Regardless of whether or not it's in almost the worst Premier League team of all time, but remember, statistically not. It's exposure to Premier League football. Kaya Sander also made his debut on for an injured Harwood Bellis at like the 82nd minute. I was surprised but happy to see him on the bench because, watching the youth come through, he was someone only signed in January. He is one of the network of players from the multi-club system. He came from our French sister team. He's quite a potentially good youth player. So, yeah, it's kind of nice to see maybe the next generation step up.
I think so. It might be someone we can get involved a bit next year, a bit more. Sounded like he was fairly solid for what he did. Got on the ball, did okay. Didn't concede a goal, so he's probably got one of the best goals per minutes ratio in our team.
That's the thing, right? Like, in comparison to most of the, even Ramsdale almost had a complete howler today when he came out at one point, completely missed it, managed to just about get back, and luckily it came to nothing. But I guess, it's the same old, right? And I don't know why we've hugely expected anything different. And I think you're right. Like, Rusk has had the impossible job, but like the fact that he came out and was like, we played some all right stuff, and for like 20 minutes, yeah, maybe. But for the fans that have travelled all the way out there, like, it's like, do you care? Like, do you not realise what? Like, do we need to have? I can't remember who it was. One of the SAS blokes apparently gave a team talk before City, right? So that's one of the reasons apparently they're putting it down to him doing so well. Do we need to bring in like a motivational speaker every single game to just get them playing? Because that was what kind of felt like today. Is that first sort of 45 minutes? It was just watching 11 people on the ball, like on the field playing football, but not really trying to get involved. And I guess we played like Ruben Dias accused us of, except against a team that, we showed towards the end of that game, if we'd actually brought it to him, we could have won. So
we could have at least we could have turned around and lost that game 2-0 in another way, and it wouldn't have been a problem. But it's just, I just don't understand why. Again, if you go all guns blazing first 5 minutes and they turn around and absolutely smash 3 goals, and I understand then putting on the brakes and saying, gee, we need to really settle down a bit here. But I still don't think we are as terrible as all of these 3 managers have sort of made out with. I think you could make a semi-competent, I'm not saying you'd win, but at least compete. And they don't. All right, 3 separate managers playing 3 different styles haven't been able to do it. So maybe I'm wrong, but I don't look at. It's not like I look at individual players and think, "Oh my god, they are absolutely useless." Like they're decent players. They are not of Premier League level, probably consistently as a group. But I think it's possible to get more out of them.
I think looking at the human side of things, this is why I put it down to the chemistry between the players. Like, I understand they're supposed to be a great bunch that like, are all really, really together and are trying their best every single week and this, that, and the other. And apparently they are. But like, I don't know if it's just incompatibility. I don't know what's going on, but like, they can't seem to bring the best out of each other. And, there isn't, again, like, I think leadership struggled. I think Stevens has tried. I think having Lallana now move into a managerial position shows that he probably was doing more of that leadership stuff off of the field than ever on it, because I don't think we're ever going to see him play for us again. And another weird signing that turned out to now be a member of our backroom staff. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think you're right. Like, but at the same time, as you also pointed out, like, I don't want to name names. I think it's a bit harsh, but how many of our players do you really see moving on? Where are they moving to? Who's going to come and pick them up, especially from the Premier League? And the fact that we can't really go through, and we did our keep, bench, sell, and it was pretty ruthless. Like, most of it was bench, sell, maybe keep if we really need somebody in that position because we can't place it. And that is the ultimate reality of our season. Like, you don't get the position where we are on the board, like, just due to managerial incompetency. You don't get there just due to players being bad. You don't get this just because the club's being run badly. And I think we've all agreed before, I don't think the club in a financial position is run badly. I just think that they spent far too long before they realised they actually need someone that knows something about the industry they're in, which is football. But all of those things combined have created whatever has happened here. And I think that, I still think that we became Russell Martin FC rather than Southampton FC, and that when he left, it just left a massive hole, and they haven't managed to fill that, and they're not going to be able to until we get a rebuild.
Yeah, I genuinely think they I think sort of the board I'm talking about, or Sports Republic, sort of thought, we know what the situation is going to be. We're going to get relegated this year. It's not going to be pretty. Martin will be manager at the whole season, and we'll go back down with him and we'll rebuild. We didn't really want to go up. We'll take the cash and we'll go down again. I actually think in hindsight, if they'd have just said that, it might have not appeased fans, but it might have at least allowed people to understand, and then not got quite on Russell Martin's back as much. I'm not saying it was the wrong decision to sack him by any means, but the point being now is that they're probably right. They needed another season, another 2 seasons to build before they came up. But they tried to throw everything into it. I think they were genuinely surprised the fans reacted the way they did. And that's probably because they're not, or don't seem to be, football people, the people that were running it at first. So they just thought we'd probably sit there and wear it. And it wouldn't be great. And they said, it's going to be a tough season, guys. But maybe they should have just come out and said, look, like, we didn't want to come up this year. Obviously, you're not going to turn it down. We needed another season to rebuild. We didn't have the money. There's no point throwing good money after bad. Maybe we should. I don't know. I just think they didn't expect to sack him, I don't think, which is why they had no plan when they did.
Yeah, well, they said that. They came out and said that, hey, we need to figure out which managers are available because we had absolutely no intention to do this. We just didn't expect you to get battered like 5-0, 5-0, 4-0, like game after game after game, to the point where, they say the players never stop believing. Well, the players must have stopped doing something. Because again, like, unless the golfing quality is just that large, it's the age-old debate we've had all season. So the entirety of the time you've been on the podcast, we've been talking about it. The whole time under Jury, we're talking about it. We're still talking about it now. It's the multiple different reasons as to why we've been so bad. I'm sure analysts will be able to sort of pawn over it over the next couple of years, and it'll be, I don't think we'll ever have the correct answer. But we'll move on to the future and what's next, because we also have some news that's come out that means that I'm maybe going to be out of content for the next couple of weeks after a message from our partners at Zencastr. Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out the clear winner, with 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs. It's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr. And we're back. So, Oscar, moving on from this terrible game, and not even really looking forward to Arsenal because, I don't really want to think about that. We have had a little bit of news today. So, Will Still has resigned from Lens. That came out this morning, apparently due to personal reasons. I think he wants to spend more time with his family and move to England. I think his girlfriend lives over here. Bit weird that it coincides with a visit to England that supposedly was to look at the training camp for Lens, whilst talking about all of the training camp stuff in Lens. And the fact that pretty every media outlet that I can see has reported that he's had conversations with Southampton. So I know that we were talking about Danny Rowe, and I know that apparently he still remains the front runner, which is mad. And also there was this flurry of bets that happened last week that then meant they stopped taking bets. Greg was convinced that was caused by us. I like to think that as much as we have a lot of reach, our reach isn't that good. I don't think we're changing people's lives. Like, I have never claimed to be anything more than an armchair pundit. Please do not put bets on the advice that I give. Like, live your life however you want. But like, all I did realistically was read a bunch of articles about different managers and put it into an easy, digestible format.
Has Neil Warnock been bumped up the listing at all? That's what I want.
We'll have to look. I think if anyone's going to have to be bumped up that listing by the amount of times that Greg mentions him, it's going to be Sam Allardyce, which I do not want. But
I wouldn't be against it. I love Big Sam.
But it seems like it's going to be Will Still. And how do we feel about that? Because we kind of all landed on the last time we talked about him probably being the best candidate for everyone, including the neutral.
Yeah, I think it's one of those. It's going to be a flashy and popular one.
Yeah.
As in fans will like it. He's been fairly present on sort of social media. He was fairly memed for his whole Football Manager thing.
Yes.
And then for every time, I think there was a big meme. Every time Will Still plays a game or coaches a game, Lons have to pay.
Suspend this that much. Yeah.
One thing I'm all for it. Like, I think why not? He's a young manager, seems to talk well, seems to know his stuff. Again, it's easy to look like you know your stuff when you're talking on TV. I get that. One thing that has scared me a little bit today is I saw that we're linked with Tom Cleverley as well, and apparently we've had good discussions with him. That upsets me greatly. So I'm hoping that's just maybe a little smokescreen.
Wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, you're right.
That was also the Athletic. I think it was Jacob Tanswell. So, I know the Athletic like to stir some things up sometimes with Southampton.
I don't know. I've always liked all of the reporters we've had for the Athletic. When we used to have reporters from the Athletic, right up until he went down. Carl Anka, big personal hero of mine. But for me, it feels like it's definitely going in that direction. Whilst they haven't made up their mind, I feel like they're just saying that out loud.
I think all of the planets are starting to align with it. You've had him resigning, you've had him moving over. I think there's something to do with the fact he wants to be near London because his partner's there and she's not very well or something. Which the two clubs he's been linked with are us and Hull. I'd say we're a bit closer than Hull. I think it makes sense in lots of regards. I believe the club have come out, or Spurs came out and said, we want to announce something by the end of next week.
Yeah.
So it's all these, there's no smoke without fire, and these things do tend to circle around. I'd be surprised if someone came out of left field now. Again, I think
that's the thing. That was kind of still my expectation. I was 100% expecting, mate, that I was going to do all of this research with these random different managers, and it wasn't going to be a single one of them, because that just seems to be how life goes, right? Like, especially as a Southampton fan. So the idea that like somebody that they were talking about, and you're right, like it feels really weird that he was talking about sort of 2 days ago about his training camp in England, and that's why he's here, to then him resigning, and out of us and Hull, you're like, there's no disrespect to Hull, but we have more resources than they're going to have. And I think that if, regardless of, if you want to take over a club and you want to be able to, build your profile, regardless of whether it's for his own reasons or what, doing it here is probably going to be better and easier to do than at Hull. Yeah. So, the logical choices in my head will put him as probably our likely candidate. And again, Rowe has downplayed the idea of, wanting, has sort of really built that he wants to go back to the Bundesliga and play in the Premier League and this, that, and the other, like manage in the Premier League. And, maybe just the fact that he's not really showing that. He seems to be keeping too many of his options open. And I think that you're right. Like, I didn't know that we were rushing that, not rushing, but we were sort of marching forward to a conclusion to this manager saga as early. I was half expecting this to drag into the summer. I'm not going to lie. I think that, the ideal solution was that the day after Arsenal, we have a new team come in. And also that gives him time to assess, to go, this is who we should keep. This is who we shouldn't keep. I don't care about this person. Get to actually know them all, if that's the case. But I just didn't expect that to move so quick. But I think the fans are going to need it, because I don't know how next Saturday is going to go. Sunday, is it Saturday? Sunday. It's the last Premier League game.
Sunday.
So I don't know how it's going to go. But what I do know is that it's not. I don't think that the vibe after the game is going to be like what an amazing game, what an amazing season. It's going to be like, this season is over, thank goodness. And I do wonder if they worry about how many fans are just going to drop off the face of the earth next season, because you've seen a lot of that take place. And I know that it's been sort of a middling reaction to the way that season tickets have been announced and ticketing prices and that kind of stuff. And I know that. But there is a lot of disillusionment. So I was speaking to one of my friends in the week, and she was the one I used to go to football with all the time. And I was talking to her about Matías Fernandez, and she was like, "Who? I've never even heard that name." And like, that shows you, like, she was a season ticket holder for like 7-8 years. Yeah. Like, her disconnection from the club has got like, she's like, I just can't watch it. Like, I know that we're meant to love Southampton, but like, I just can't week in, week out. And I'm like, well, I don't really have much of a choice. If I want to talk about how a game's been, admittedly, I didn't know that 90% of the season could just be copy pasted with, we played well for 20 minutes and blah, blah, and then obviously we lost. But, that's the case. It just is what it is.
This week. Can we back it up with another performance next week? No. Simple answer.
But that's the thing. Like, I think it would be good to just have that announcement, move on to a new era immediately. Pat Rusk on the back, send him back to the under-21s. Maybe Lallana stays with us. Who knows? Maybe he goes to be the assistant to the under-21s. Sure, whatever. But then, we'll just have to see. Like, I think that the season needs to end with something that is positive. Just anything that's positive, right? Because at the moment, it doesn't feel like anything that comes out of the club really is sort of happy. There's no and by the way, Carl Walker-Peters has signed a contract extension. And by the way, Aaron Ramsdale's probably going to stay. He's agreed that the Championship's the best league in the world. Like, there's none of that so far. Again, like, we'd love Matías Fernandez to stay. Realistically, someone's probably going to put in a massive bid for him and get him, because that's how football is. So, the idea of announcing a new manager that is kind of a safe option in the sense of, I don't think it's going to upset too many people. An exciting option for most people, maybe a little bit flashy, maybe not. I know that there are going to be some people that will think he's just the football manager, but as I showed with like the research I did into him, I think there's a lot more to him than that. So that's going to be where we end it, Oscar, because it needs to be there needs to be something from the 90 minutes of my life that got stolen today that isn't terrible. So any parting thoughts from you, or?
Again, I think everyone just wants the season to be over now. If we can end it with a bit of a positive, and I say again, bring back the old halftime announcement, bring him out of the tunnel before the game or at the end of the game, bring him out of the tunnel, big scarf in the air, seems a bit old-fashioned now, but let's go back.
I think that would be banging. I'd really, really enjoy that. And again,
it would get everyone, in the mood a little bit of buzz generating. I'm sure they'd probably sell 10% more season tickets, so it ticks their box as well. And and then maybe some of the players, we have a semi-decent performance against Arsenal with the new gaffer sitting in the stand, and then all of a sudden things start to look a bit rosy, or ends we get pumping, and then no one knows who the manager is, and it go one of two ways. So if you can get it done, then get it done.
They've secured Champions League or European football, so Champions League football next year now. It's going to be rubber. So I'm hoping for another, like when we last got relegated, it's another like 4-4 game. I don't know if that'll be pro prediction. We'll see. We'll see how we are.
I think they've secured second unless City win both games and score a ludicrous amount of goals, or we concede a ludicrous amount of goals. Sorry, we score a ludicrous amount of goals. That isn't happening. So
score goals?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe they'll just come and park the bus and play for a 0-0.
Who knows? Let's hope not. We want it something to be a little bit exciting towards the end. But
one thing I meant to ask is Paul injured? I didn't see him there today.
I did not. That's one of the things I was expecting, because I know that Greg was hoping that he would get a look in, but he did not. So
I would like to.
He wasn't on the bench either. Wasn't even.
No, that's why I was curious. I would like to see him again. One last game. If he might end up staying for next season. I don't know, but
put Tall Paul, Ross Stewart, and Cameron Archer on at the same time.
Yes, upset Arsenal's. Mind you, Arsenal quite good.
Just put one centre back on.
Let's just
play
do
3
it
at the back, but just 3. One right back, one left back, one centre back.
There you
it's
go.
not going to happen.
No.
Right, yeah, that's about all we've got time for today. So thank you very much for joining me, Oscar. Pleasure as always, mate. We will be back tomorrow with Summon. I need to speak to Greg and Oscar and decide what we're going to do. Maybe we'll have a manager announcement. I feel like that'll be a little bit too early, but we'll definitely have something for you tomorrow. And until then, catch us all on the social media, and we will see you in the next one. Goodbye.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.